Okay, hi everybody. How you doing? Good Monday? Oh, Mondays are always great. My name is Cindy Fukami and I'm the Associate Chair of the Management Department at Daniels. And I brought along with me three very capable colleagues here. We have Lowell Miller. Any of you had Lowell for a class? If you would, it would probably be a business strategy class.
Strategy and maybe a little entrepreneurship here.
Maybe a little business plan.
Maybe a little bit business
Maybe
plan.
a little business plan. Lowell comes to us with a great background in industry. You want to tell them a little bit?
Sure. So my path to the classroom is through the boardroom. Spent about 30 years in business. I was last an executive at Quest. They were bought out by CenturyLink. I realized that I was too young to retire, and I have a lousy golf game, so my second chapter in life is to share my knowledge with others.
And one of your prior positions was at Frontier Airlines.
Helping start Frontier Airlines in 1994.
Yeah, when it was good.
Yeah.
When Sean wasn't.
When it was good.
Before Sean.
Yeah. And we have Bob Abrahimi, who some of you may have seen in
Three of them at least.
Gateway.
Gateway 3. I teach strategy also undergraduate once in a while, but also the director of the Master of Science in Management program. I teach business design and strategy at the graduate level. As I've seen three faces I recognize, and just to add to what Professor Miller said, the CEO of Frontier at one time was one of my executive MBA students, and was yours too?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And we taught him well.
I think we did a good job.
I think we did. It got bad after he left. Okay, and we have Andy Schnackenberg. And Andy, would you like to
Sure.
say a few things?
Yeah, sure. My path to the classroom has also gone through, I guess you could say, industry. I was in private equity for about 5 years after my undergrad, and that led me into all kinds of questions about international relations and business overseas, which brought me right back into the classroom. So I teach strategy here at Daniels. I've only been here for about 2 years, so I probably haven't taught any of you guys. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So we are here to tell you a little bit about our major. And before we do that, we want to show you a little clip. I just got off a couple plane rides this weekend, and so this seemed to be something worth showing to you guys.
Pretend to have your attention for just a few moments. My ex-husband, my new boyfriend, and their divorced attorney are going to show you the safety features of Boeing 737-800 series. It's been a long day for me. To properly fasten your seatbelt, slide the flat end of the buckle. To release, lift up on the buckle. Position your seatbelt tight and lower across your hips like my grandmother wears her support bra. If you get mad and you want to take your toys and go home, there's 8 ways to get there. 2 forward exit doors, 2 upper wing window exits, 2 rear exit doors, signs overhead, disco lights on the floor lead each exit. Everybody gets a door prize in the seat back pocket in front of you, along with dirty diapers, chewing gum wrappers, banana peels, and all other gifts you leave for us from time to time. It's a safety information card. Take it out, check it out. You'll notice in the highly unlikely event that the captain lands us near a hot tub, everybody gets their very own teeny-weeny yellow Southwest bikini. One size fits all. Take it out only if told to do so. Place it over your head, wrap that strap around your waist, buckle it in front, and pull the tighten. Once outside, pull down on the red tab and inflate to manually inflate below the tube at your shoulder. The flight attendants are coming by, hoping that you'll tell them how good-looking they are. They're going to make sure that your seat backs and tray table are in their full, upright, and absolute most uncomfortable position possible. And your carry-on items are crammed and shoved completely into the seat in front of you, leaving absolutely no room for your knees or feet. As you know, it's a no smoking, no whining, no complaining flight. It's a please and thank you, and you are such a good-looking flight attendant flight. Smoking is never allowed on board a Southwest. If you're caught smoking in the lavatory, the fine for that's $2,000, and if you want to pay that for your airfare, you should have flown somebody else. If we do make you that nervous the next hour and a half, you're more than welcome to step outside. We don't discriminate at Southwest. We have a special smoking section just for you. We'll even show you a movie tonight. We have Up in the Air. And the flight attendant serving your name is Wendy, and her motto is, if you can light it, you can smoke it. Federal law prohibits tampering with, disabling, or destroying any smoke detector or webcam in either of our laboratories. Federal aviation regulation requires passenger compliance with the lighted passenger information signs and posted placards. Basically, Just do what we say and nobody gets hurt. And although we never anticipate a loss in cabin pressure, if we did, we certainly wouldn't be at work tonight. But if needed, for oxygen mask would off the compartment overhead. Stop screaming, let go of your neighbor, pull under that plastic tubing is fully extended, place the mask over your nose and mouth and breathe normally. To activate the flow of oxygen, simply insert 75 cents for the first minute and 50 cents for each additional minute. Although that plastic bag may not inflate, you are receiving lots and lots of gin. Oxygen, that is. And if you're traveling with small children, we're sorry. If you're traveling with more than one child, pick out the one that you think might have the most earning potential down the road. And if you're traveling with somebody needing very special assistance, like your husband, bless his heart, or your wife, put on your mask first. That's it for the do's and don'ts of show and tell. Sit back and relax, or you can sit up and be tense. Either way, it's not an hour and a half flight. Game to game, the clock's already ticking. Seriously, if there's anything at all that we can do to make your flight more enjoyable, please tell us. Just as soon as we land in Salt Lake City. And if there's anything you can do to make our flight more enjoyable, we'll tell you immediately. We're not shy in Southwest. That's what we call very cheap entertainment. Nobody had to pay extra, but you certainly don't get a refund. That's thanks for choosing Southwest. Welcome aboard.
Now, why do you think I would want to show you this video? It's entertaining. Do you think you can tell from an employee whether they've been well managed or not? And if you were to get on a plane and have somebody who clearly enjoys what she's doing, what might you conclude about that?
Good
Good man. Excellent lyric. Excellent lyric. So, you might have had this experience sometime. You get on the plane and you're sitting there and they ask you if you want something to drink, and you tell them, boy, I'd really like the entire can of the Coke, and they look at you and kind of throw it at you, and you might conclude at that point, boy, that's an unhappy employee and is probably not being treated very well. And you might be wrong. It could be that it's just an irritable person having a bad day. Or it could be that they are treating you the same way that they are being treated as employees. And that's a really sad thing, because you are not, as the customer, you are not interacting with the person who's at the top of the organization, very highly paid and feeling well treated. You're dealing with somebody at the bottom of the organization who is more than likely not being well treated. So how we treat our employees has a significant effect on our business. In fact, if you look at, have you ever heard of Glassdoor.com? Some of you have, some of you haven't. Say you get an offer for employment at a company and you want to find out if it's a good place to work. You go to Glassdoor.com and you look up this company and you find out all the things that their employees have said about them. And if you look at that and you see a lot of bad things written about a company, you might say, oh, these are just the unhappy employees who are going to leave. It's kind of like reading a bad Yelp review at a restaurant. And, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Well, some researchers took those Glassdoor.com ratings and they correlated them with the company's stock price. And for the Fortune 100 companies, the top publicly traded companies in America, they found that the best way to predict a company's stock performance was by using their Glassdoor.com ratings. So having a group of employees that is well managed and feels like they're making a contribution is very good for your business. It's a very good thing for your business. It's not just a matter of being nice, it's a matter of being effective. And so that's really the point of having a happy employee. and having an employee who feels like they're making an important contribution. So that's what being a management major is all about. I thought I'd start out by showing you some of the people who have graduated from DU with a major in management. One of them is the 39th most wealthy person in the world right now. Isn't that nice? It's James Cox Kennedy, a member of the Cox family. Any of you ever get cable TV from Cox? So that's where that person is. Here locally in Denver, you ever get your car fixed at Brakes Plus? Well, then you're dealing with a company of an alum of our department. James Unruh from Unisys, former president, now retired, and Joe Saunders, who's really one of our most famous alums, I think, who was chairman and CEO of Visa, just retired. He also has given us some scholarship money, right? To, no, you don't know?
I don't know about
You don't
that.
know?
Sure.
You don't know? I
Check
think
with
he-
Marilyn Hughes.
I think he's given scholarship money for our students to travel abroad. So, something for you to look into. Hopefully I'm not making that up. Okay, so we have some pretty prominent alums. I also want to tell you that our current major will run through 2020, which means that you would be able to take our current major if you wanted to do that. But you can also switch to taking our new major, which is launching this fall. And it involves a couple of classes that are already being offered, but it also presents you with some brand new courses that have just been designed. So it's a very current and interesting major that we put together. We have 2 tracks in the major. The first track is management consulting, and the second track is strategic leadership. So, we start with all of our majors taking these 4 classes. So you start by taking the core class in management, which is Management 2100. And once you pass through that, then you're eligible to take Managing Complex Organizations, which is a new class that looks at what we call the more macro aspects of management, which means the organization itself. How should it be structured? After you finish Managing Complex Organizations, then you're eligible to take the rest of the major. Everybody is required to take global management. In fact, we are encouraging people to wait and take global management till they return from study abroad, because we want to link the class to your experiences abroad. We also have a class called Leading for Collaboration. It's a new class that focuses on effective teams. And we have a business plan class, which is our capstone class in the major. We currently offer a business plan class, so this is one of the classes that remains. And we want you to take the business plan class as close to graduation as possible, so that it can take advantage of all the other classes that you've had. If you are in the consulting track, besides those 4 classes, you'll be required to take 2 other classes, one called Management Consulting, which is being offered for the first time this quarter, and involves some very interesting projects and work with outside companies. And then secondly, you'll be required to take a project management class. At the beginning, we think this will probably be the project management class that's offered in BIA. And our majors will take it as well, but eventually we think we may develop our own project management class. The second track is strategic leadership, and strategic leadership will have a new class that's been developed called Strategies for Managing Growth. So this is, again, more macro level course with business strategy in it. How does a company get bigger? What kind of options do you have? What kind of decisions do you have to make? And then we have a leadership class, which will be a combination of you understanding what leadership models exist and what kind of leadership model you're going to adopt for yourself. Okay, so you've got those 4 classes, you've got 2 required, so you've got 6 classes so far. Then you will pick one of these 2, one design thinking, so a class on innovation, as well as, if you don't want to take that one, you can take a negotiation and dispute resolution class. Negotiating being one of the most important skills you can develop for all kinds of reasons. Then you've got one more class left to make a total of 8, and that's any other class the management department offers. What we really think you ought to do is an internship to get good work experience. But we're not requiring it, we're strongly suggesting it. And Andy is going to be the point person in our department on internships. Okay? Now, I've also put together what is probably a really overly complex picture of this, but just to show you how it would play out over the 4-year period. You start with Management 2100, and then probably in the fall of your 2nd year, you would take the Complex Organizations course. And then you're welcome to take anything other than the business plan class, which you want to delay. So if you're in the consulting track, you take consulting and project management, in strategic leadership, the growth and the leadership models, and both of those tracks would take the other 4 classes. So that would get you through the 4 years that you'll probably be spending here at Daniels, okay? We're working on, we haven't quite completed, but we're working on developing a system whereby you would know which classes are being offered in which quarter. So you could plan a little bit farther out into the future and count on when these classes are going to be offered. So we're hoping to have that in place by the fall. Okay, how are we doing? So far, so good? Alrighty. So our major has the smallest number of classes you can have in a major, and that's really because we have 3 courses in the core already. So between the 8 and the 3, you'll have 11, and that's a pretty good amount of classes in one area. All right, so what kind of skills will you develop within this major? Number 1, self-awareness. Why is self-awareness important? What does that have to do with management? Not a guess. Why it's important to be self-aware?
Because you can't lead others unless you know who you are.
Very good. When you are a leader, who do you start with? You start with yourself. You start with yourself. And so self-awareness is really key for effective leadership. So self-awareness, high-performing teams. You are going to be a part of a team in any organization in which you work. You will not be done with teams when you graduate from BU. There will be teams everywhere you turn because they're a very effective way of getting things done, but they're also full of drama, right? Working on a team is a drama-filled occasion. So being able to work well within a team context, but especially being on a team that's not doing well and being able to turn that around. In fact, that's a very likely interview question you'll get when you're interviewing for a job, is what would you do if you were on a team that was failing, and how would you turn that around? So team skills are a really, really important asset no matter what your major is going to be. Dispute resolution and negotiation. You think there's a lot of conflict in organizations? Yes. Sometimes we use the 80-20 rule for that. We spend 80% of our time dealing with conflict as opposed to 20% of our time actually doing some productive work. So conflict is a big part of organizations, and being able to manage that effectively, being able to solve disputes, whether they be internally with other employees or with customers and clients, or whether you're just talking about negotiating your starting salary for your first job, which is really critical because your lifetime earnings are related to the salary you get in your first job. Right? Everything is a multiplier over that. So being able to negotiate on your own behalf, on behalf of others, really critical skill. Strategic thinking, as opposed to regular thinking. Strategic thinking means we have to make a decision. We have to decide which direction we're going in. How are we going to do this? What factors do we need to include? Diversity and inclusion. A big part of the University of Denver's culture is inclusive excellence. That's because it's a really important factor. Again, no matter what industry you're in, what role you take on, being able to work well with people who come from different backgrounds and cultures, even just have different ideas than we do, is very, very important for your effectiveness. Leadership, leadership is not just putting on a uniform and saying, follow me. You could turn around and find that there's nobody behind you and you're all by yourself. So leadership is an important skill. Who are you going to follow? How are you going to become the kind of person that has employees like the crazy flight attendant? And then diagnosing performance problems. Say you decide you want to go into employment in the consulting industry, and a company comes and says, well, we have high turnover rate, and it's costing us too much money, we want to lower our turnover rate. How are you going to know what to do, what to look for? You're going to have good skills at diagnosis. And so these are all skills that are developed within the management major. Okay, next, where do management majors work? So for this, I went to Career Services and I said, where are our majors getting jobs? And this is not the full list, but it is a list of where our majors have been employed, those people who graduated last year. So it's a very current list of the jobs that are on there. Does everybody know all of these companies? I'm not sure I do, but does it look like an interesting group? 5280 Magazine is a magazine here in Denver. Does anybody know what ADP is? It's a very old company, yes?
It's like a portal for like employees to log in their times and stuff like that,
Mhm.
pay stubs.
Mhm. Payroll company. So it's how you get paid. In fact, over the weekend, I was visiting my family, and my aunt was complaining about ADP putting in a new system at their law firm, and it wasn't working and people weren't getting paid. That's not a very happy thing to go through, but one of our students went there. We have lots of people going to work for sports organizations here in Denver and beyond. ESPN. Northwestern Mutual is a big employee of our majors. There's a big office very nearby at I-25 in Colorado. SDR, I think, is an investment firm, yes? Target, Via West is a great local company, data warehousing, and so on and so forth. And then you can see there's people who get jobs in not-for-profit sector as well, like the Friendship Bridge. So we have some very interesting organizations that our students get internships in. You can see some of them are small, some of them are large, different kinds of industries, different sectors. For full-time work, these are some of the places where our most recent graduates have gotten their full-time employment. Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, the Department of Defense. This is where they come in and interview your professors and make sure you're not a security risk or disloyal. Dish Network, CEO of that company is one of the richest people in the world. The El Pomar Foundation is a Colorado foundation that does a lot of charitable work, so it's not for profit. ESPN is back there again. Heinz is a real estate company, as well as Walt Disney, which, by the way, remember I told you that there was a study that showed your Glassdoor ratings could predict your stock price? That same study, they graded companies on three things: how good you were to your employees, how good you were to the environment, and how good you were financially. And using those three things, they said that Walt Disney Company was the best company in the Fortune 100. So Disney is a great company to work for. Okay? So, any other questions? Comments? Nothing?
I have a comment.
Okay.
That is, the reason why we recommend you to have an internship is the fact that 60% of people that get internship, their first job is with the company that they have their internship with. Internships are extremely important, highly recommended. Make sure you get one before you graduate, because one of the things that people say, do you have any experience? And most people with an undergraduate degree have very little experience, and therefore it adds value to what you offer to any company.
Thank you.
Cindy,
Mm-hmm.
can you also talk a little bit about why they should choose management among the many options?
Among the many options they have.
Yes.
As I was saying in the beginning when I couldn't get the video to work, how well people are managed is significant with the financial performance of the firm. And so it's a way to really have an impact on a company and its effectiveness. You have a little bit more flexibility, I think, with the management major than you have with some of the other majors from the point of view of figuring out what your future career path is going to be. That, you know, if you're an accounting major, you're gonna be an accountant, and your big choice is whether you're going into public accounting or you're going to be an internal auditor somewhere. But that's about as much choice as you get. In management, you can go to a wide variety of industries and perform a wide variety of functions. One of the more exciting things that happens is that you can get hired into what we call a management training program. So you leave school and you go into a management training program. DaVita, a local company, is an example of this. You can go to work for DaVita, and in this management training program, they send you to different functions and different locations, and for a couple of years you get to experience what it's like working in different areas and find out where it is you wanna make your impact. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility in the kinds of work that you would be in. Would you like to?
Yes, if you don't mind. With any other degree, you will be focused on one area, which is what Cindy was talking about. But beyond that, nobody moves up on corporate ladder unless you have some ability to manage people, manage projects, manage processes, and lead. And so that is what the value of a management major would be. Imagine whatever, accounting, finance, whatever, up to a point you are on your own and you're doing some technical analysis and all stuff, and you're well prepared for it. So nothing to put down any of the other majors. But as soon as you have the responsibility to lead a bunch of accountants, a few finances, or a department, or whatever, that is where the management degree becomes very valuable.
I just echo that. It's very cross-disciplinary. Most businesses, unless you really know what type of industry you want to go into, the example was nonprofit. Everyone thinks, well, nonprofit, I don't get paid. Well, that's not true. Nonprofits are an excellent way of building your resume, building your portfolio, especially in the executive director position and leadership. And it's not unheard of for people to leave from the nonprofit sector and move into the for-profit sector, especially with foundations like the Daniels Fund or one of those that are tied into the community. So it does give you an opportunity to kind of, as Bauman said, lead a cross-disciplinary team in some respects, whether it's tactical, whether it's strategic. The key is that you're being exposed to so many different areas that maybe at some point in the future you decide, well, I really like that area. I'd really want to get a master's in marketing or a master's in management or whatever it is. You have that knowledge across the spectrum versus flowing into one specific alley of specialty.
Yeah. Andy?
I guess I would agree.
Ditto.
Ditto. If you're more interested in kind of focusing your efforts towards one specific end and having that career as your choice, then that would maybe be something like accounting or finance, and that's totally legitimate. I mean, it depends on who you are. As we say, self-awareness. If you're interested in sitting and doing your own work, and you want to have the knowledge base that many others in your organization don't have, you might want to go into IT or data analytics, something like that. What you're going to get in management, to me, is what separates good organizations from great organizations, and that you can have many, many firms with lots of accountants and financial analysts, and they can oftentimes be very similar, other than the fact that one or a few of them has great leadership, great management, and that's really what makes the difference. So it's got more of a compelling twist if you're looking at trying to understand the factors that drive organizational performance, more so than just working in a specific area.
There is no organization without management.
And, Andy, you kind of said this earlier where you worked in private equity and went right back to school because it was maybe a little different than you thought it was. I remember back to the first job I ever had when I was in high school, and it was like watching a soap opera. You know, it was like watching telenovela. You know, it's all this great drama and what people were doing and not doing and hiding. You know, some people would be off hiding and other people would be trying to ingratiate the boss, and all this kind of stuff was going on, and it just seemed to me such an incredibly interesting thing to do, to try to figure out how to get the best out of everybody that was in there, and get everybody feeling like they were playing for the same team instead of playing for themselves or playing for a department or whatever, but we're all in here playing for the same team. And so, you know, there are no organizations without people. People are, it's kind of like if I were to say, you know, I love my job at DU, if only we didn't have all those students. You know, I wouldn't have a job if there weren't any students. And so in companies, we wouldn't have companies unless there were employees. And probably one of the biggest shocks most people have is when they go from being an individual contributor when they first get their job to now you're promoted and now you have to manage other people. And you don't know how to do that because what you've been taught is an individual skill. So being able to do this and do it well will serve you in all kinds of things. Yep.
So could you kind of explain, so that this is really like a major in like people skills, I would say, and you emphasize like being skillful in one area, like if I were into analytics, I'd be skillful in that area, but could you explain how I would be able to like manage people after choosing this major if I wouldn't know how to manage a retail store, or like how would this major actually show me how to manage these specific spots?
So it isn't just managing people, right? Because some of these things are managing people, but the rest of them are managing processes or managing the whole organization.
Okay.
So strategic management, you know, what are our long-range plans? What are, you know, what areas of business are we gonna get into? What are our competitors doing? All of that. Plus you will have a pretty good core where you're taking accounting and finance and analytics and all of those things. It's one of the best things about getting a BSBA is you have such a great range of required classes that ground you in all the areas of business. But you'll have a little bit more in how the whole company is managed as well as managing personal relationships. Make sense? Okay, thanks. And you asked a question? Very good.
I think that management, I've heard from some people in higher up in management at DU, that said it's sometimes hard to get a placement and a good job right out of college because it's management. You can't really walk into a high management position straight out of college.
Right.
So what would you say is, like, how does Daniels handle that, and like where are places that like students who just graduate are being placed in businesses?
Well, we can probably get better data on that from career services. But the one example I gave was we have several companies now that come to us and recruit people for their management training program. And so you can go right out of your undergraduate degree in management into one of those programs. And that gives you a very nice base of understanding. You can also, I think, be flexible in what you do. If you look at the industries that are represented here, we don't have their job titles, but you can see that our graduates were able to get jobs right out of school in some pretty interesting companies, so it's possible. Will you be an executive? No, not at first, but you'll be in a path to have that happen. We talked to a bunch of HR people when we were redesigning the major, and the skills that we built into the program are skills that they said that they absolutely look for. And I have to tell you, one of the first skills that they mentioned was the ability to deal with conflict. That was a really critical area that they found a lot of recent college graduates were not able to deal with.
Same thing when I did conduct focus groups and market research with practitioners for the Master of Science in Management, which is for people that don't have an undergraduate in business at all. They come from any area outside business. And one of them was, of course, conflict, negotiations, leadership, a number of these things that is the undergraduate program is also in the Master of Science Management program that I direct. You have potential for jobs, but as far as I'm concerned, you won't be an executive with a management degree, nor would you be the vice president for finance with a finance degree. There's no way that you have to put your energy, your time, effort, show yourself, rise above the rest. I always say you gotta stick out, kind of, to move up the corporate ladder in any of the area. You won't become the vice president of marketing if you have a marketing degree. Nobody will hire you. They will hire you to do maybe a little social media promotion, or you do some little thing in the company, but you won't be a generalist in marketing, you won't be a generalist, you won't be an executive in business analytics, because you just have an undergraduate in business analytics, or accounting. In accounting, the same thing. They'll find you a nice little corner place and they'll tell you, go check the numbers, look at the, do the ledgers, whatever it is. You have to start from somewhere, whether you're a management major or whether you're accounting or business analytics, finance, or any of these. Usually there's lots of people in that hierarchy. I'm sure you all have remember from your gateway classes the hierarchy. There are lots of places, and to get to the top, you got to do better than others.
Yeah, I guess it's a matter of where you want to place your bet, right? If what you want is a very particular job when you graduate, then you will probably want to go into a more clear, like a finance career track, investments, or real estate, or those. But management will give you the flexibility to kind of pick your own path. So if you're a pick your own path kind of person, you might be better suited in management than if you have a very specific job in mind.
Sad.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say from a career services perspective, I think one, you'll see the most probably diverse employers list within management. And someone told me, and I use it a lot when I meet with students, is they ask you want to be within the business or on top of the business. And neither one of those things is a good or bad. Neither one's better, because some people do want to be that specific. They're the ideal accounting person that they're going to fix all these accounting problems, and they're that specialist. Where management, you're going to be more of that generalist, more of that on top of the business. And I think that's figuring out, where do you want to be? Do you want to have this specialist area that you're the expert in, or are you going to be more of a generalist? You have a wide variety of knowledge of all things that are going in business, then you can again do all these things. You can lead, you can conflict manage, you can negotiate, and things like that. So again, it's a lot of thinking of what are your skills, where do you want to be? Again, because this is going to offer you a lot of variety too, where finance and accounting is going to be a lot more specific.
Oh, so yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, you were going to say that.
So just a couple things. I think one thing, data is just sort of pervasive, as you all know nowadays. So the notion that management is soft is gonna, if it isn't already changing, it's changing quickly. So there are many analytical skills that you're gonna learn in management. So it's not anti-data or anything like that, just to point that out. And secondly, as Cindy mentioned, you've got a pretty clear track that's available in consulting, if that were to be a choice, in the sense that that is in a way its own profession and currently. And again, that's a very, very difficult profession to crack, much like high-end financial enterprises and tech companies and all that. So it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that we're going to try to work with you on getting into.
Yeah.
So there's some of that too. Consulting is a profession that lends itself to many different industries, but it's still considered kind of its own separate profession. And leadership development programs, in my experience anyway, you can see people go pretty quickly up the chain depending on what company they're with and what leadership development program they're in. You can be accelerated pretty quickly if you're kind of singled out in some of those programs. So it can provide you with a good platform, I think,
Yeah.
depending on where you're trying to go.
Yeah, and on the consulting level, it used to be that when you went to a consulting firm, you saw a lot of people with gray hair or less hair.
Less.
And
Thank you.
thank you. And now, so you would think, oh, I can't be a consultant, I'm not old enough, but the consulting companies have kind of shifted around to the point now where they do want to hire people right out of their undergraduate program, and they train you in a particular methodology that they use. So an example might be Accenture hires a whole bunch of undergraduate business majors, and they teach you about their models and their diagnostic tools, and you go out and gain a lot of experience in doing that. Who else is coming here from consulting firms? Some of
McKinsey.
the guys in
Hitachi.
Slalom.
Hitachi. One of the biggest.
Hitachi is
They've
always
hired a lot of our grads.
contacting us for names of students, and so the consulting firms are a place to really get your foot in the door with your undergraduate degree in management.
Yeah. None of you are going to be happy with an accounting or a management or analytics or whatever. You got to find your passion, your path, and this is one of those degrees that will be just great for some of you, but not the others. Very simple. You got to find your own thing that is good for you, you're passionate about it, and you can excel in. Some people would be very unhappy to just sit down and work with numbers day in and day out from morning to the evening. And some people will just love it. Some people will just love to sit down in a cubicle and do their own thing. We know that. I mean, everybody's different. This is a program. This is a major whereby you can think of, if you're a people person, this is a good degree for you. If you're really great with just numbers and can never get along with anyone and cannot stand people, then please don't. It's simple, very simple. I'm honest, I'll tell you exactly what it should be. Find what makes you happy. Gives you a career path that at the end you don't look back and says, what a mistake that was. I wasted 4 years or 20 years afterwards or whatever it may be. I've seen unhappy people doing anything, so find that. That's really simple. But I think management has a lot to offer, and sometimes people just say, oh, it's a lot beyond just a few little things, and there's a lot of career paths and a lot of things, especially in the long term. If you think about long term, this is a type of quality that whoever has it in no matter whatever area will help you excel.
One of the areas we didn't really touch upon, but positions itself well to the major, is the whole idea of the business plan in the final year. And we didn't talk about entrepreneurship. It's a deep passion of mine, always has been. You may go through your career, you are in management, you see some opportunity, you see some created problem, and you think of a solution to that, and you work on that as part of your business plan, and then you go off and you sell it, right? You sell it, you get others to join your cause, you get others to fund you, and now you are creating your own path, your own business. Management is that degree, that major that says, I understand all the different 9 building blocks of a business. I don't focus just on the revenues or the costs or the marketing and the channels. I focus on everything my business. And when you're talking to a potential investor, they want to hear how you're going to do this, right? You have a passion, you have an idea, but are you serious? And management gives you kind of that understanding of everything that is needed to start that business day one. The rest is up to you, but management, especially as it ties in with the business plan,
Right.
fits in nicely with the entrepreneurial aspect
Right,
if you decide.
and entrepreneurship right now is a minor. And so if that's something you're interested in, to pair that with a management major would be a great combination. You can also minor in management. This is not minor Mondays, but it's, you can also minor in management, and lots of people do that. Lots of people do that because it's just part of everything you're going to do in a business organization.
If you're considering double majoring, would you say I want to study international business, so should I double major and major in management as well, or do a minor in management, which would be more beneficial?
You can do either of them. This is, my area of expertise is not telling you how many majors you should have, right? I have observed that lots of people are doing double and triple majors at the university. And I don't want to contradict anything that Career Services has been telling you about this, but I don't know, I would look at somebody and say they couldn't decide what they wanted to do if they were majoring in so many things. So it's a matter of what kind of advising you're getting, if you can put the courses together that you need, how often are they being offered, and all of that. But I would think about getting more depth in an area and not just doing the bare minimum to get a major, but trying to really develop an area of expertise. But international business and management go together quite beautifully. The international business major used to be housed in the management department. And so we have a lot of faculty members with great expertise in international business. So I think it would make some sense to combine it.
Any questions about double majors, mighty minors, all that stuff? Advising upstairs,
Yeah.
come see us. We can do like a whole grad plan, see how much space you have, talk to you about why you want to combine those things, and if it makes sense. So come see your advisors.
And from a careers perspective, it goes back to getting experience in an internship. No one's gonna just hire you because you have 2 majors or 4 minors or things like that, right?
Yes.
You're not gonna just get a job because it's gonna be beneficial and you're gonna have a lot of knowledge, but there's an experience piece tied to that. Or just getting a second major doesn't, guarantee you the best job you ever wanted.
And besides, you can always come back for a graduate degree, right? If you find your passion and you want to explore a more narrow niche, you can come back and get your graduate degree. Okay? Yes.
It's my understanding that historically, business schools or management majors weren't really open to undergraduates. It was more of a graduate study that you kind of went for later on in your life. So I guess my question is what has changed to make it to where it's valuable for you guys to offer that to undergraduate students?
Well, that's true of all majors, so I wouldn't single out management. The MBA degree was created for people who did not have an undergraduate degree in business. And so there's been a lot of change in that direction because now we have a lot of people majoring in business at the undergraduate level. But that's true of any of the majors, not just management. So I'm not sure I follow your question.
I guess just as the business school in general.
Oh, okay.
Or Daniels.
So, again, this is just my opinion, right, on this. both of my daughters went to DU. Neither of them took one business course. One of them graduated with a degree in chemistry, and one of them graduated with a BFA in studio art. And the one with the BFA in studio art started working for a company doing payroll support. So what job you get after you graduate, if you think arts and sciences majors don't get jobs in businesses, of course they get jobs in businesses. Where else are they gonna get jobs? If you're a smart person and you're passionate about what you're doing and you have a well-rounded background, you know you're gonna get a job.
I'm not sure whether I understood quite. Are you implying that it's just a recent move to have an undergraduate in management, or what?
Or
What am
no,
I?
no,
would you
Undergraduate
please
in
repeat?
business.
Oh, in business in general.
Business in general, like at the undergraduate level, you know.
No.
But the colleges of business have been offering business degrees as an undergraduate since I know, and I've been around for a little while.
Well, you know, DU started in 1908.
Yeah.
So
I'm
they
just
have-
asking historically. That's
But
just,
historically,
Yeah.
well, it used to be economics and psychology, and a lot of people just kind of became business, even as professors. But we've had business undergraduate degrees for a long time.
Yeah.
It's not something just
But
recent.
it's you know, you can get a degree in art and get a job
Oh,
in
yeah.
a business. You know, it happens all the time. Some companies will tell you that they prefer arts
Yeah.
and sciences graduates because they like people who have a very well-rounded education, which is why you have such a large DU core to finish, so that you have that kind of background as well.
So, just a real quick example here. I graduated with international business in 2000, undergrad, and my first job was in private equity. So, just to give you an idea,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of these majors, they may lead you into a certain direction. Sometimes they don't. You have finance majors that take jobs outside of finance. I mean, it happens. So, I would also really highly, on that path, I think it's a good question. Encourage you to really try to co-create your path here, regardless of what major you choose, to really work with the department that you're in and the career counseling, career services, all that, but to really take an active role in that and shaping it, because the days of where you come to class and get told and, you know, sort of fed knowledge and then you walk out and have this path that's set up for you, those are gone. So really, largely, this is a co-created effort with you and us. And that's like, you know, you're gonna get that sort of service across the board, I would think, with your major decision, but it takes a lot, yeah.
And that's where internships also
Internships,
are very,
yeah.
very helpful. Did you guys have something to say to that? No?
So, I mean, yeah, I absolutely agree that, you know, you can major in anything at DU, but if you don't take advantage of the opportunities that you have available to you right now, then the experiences you're gonna have in your first job are gonna be vastly different. I have plenty of students in all business majors who come see me as a senior and say, all right, I've never had an internship, I don't have a resume, what do I do now? And I cannot help them. I have not done the things. That's part of why you guys are required to go through this professional development program, is to avoid being that student. So, you know, you're here, hopefully in your first or second year, keep going with all this, you know, come see your professors, keep asking these questions so that you understand the opportunities that are available to you.
Find yourself a mentor, you know, work with people, show what you're capable of doing. Don't stay till the end and then say, well, who am I even asking for a reference? And when somebody asks me for, you know, a letter of recommendation and I barely know them, I'm gonna find all sorts of excuses not to write them. Very simple. I'm bad. No. And if somebody has shown me what they're capable of doing, I'll be more than glad to write one and lie about them. But you know what I'm saying? So get involved, get engaged, get excited about things. Just don't go through life. You know, whatever happens. Whatever happens, something will happen. Good or bad, but you have to live with the consequences though.
Okay. You eager to leave? One more question, yes?
Well, like, I want I've already kind of thought about what I want to do with my life. And I want to go into hospital management, so I didn't know if management here would be a good segue into that.
I
But
think
I don't
it's.
have like a master's program here for that, so I didn't know if this was the
We
place.
are very likely going to have a master's program in it.
In him,
If
yeah.
you wait about 5 or 10 minutes. It's healthcare is the fastest growing industry in the state of Colorado, and God knows they need help. University College has a very well-regarded master's in healthcare management, but Daniels will very likely
Yes.
have a healthcare management emphasis very, very shortly. I wouldn't be surprised at all. They're already working on it, so.
That's what I heard, so it's kind of
Yeah,
rocking here.
yeah, and they need a lot of help in healthcare. It's just a mess. So you have lots of opportunity there. Yeah. Okay?
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Good luck.